What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to LTQ Wrestling Podcast. Hopefully, everybody's staying safe out there with the wildfires and the ice and the snow. Just stay safe. There's been a lot of bad stuff going on. We talk about some wrestling today. I'm joined by my usual crew, QJ and Tears. Are we ready to talk some wrestling, fellas? Let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first topic we're going to be talking about today, I know it's a long banner at the bottom, but I didn't really know how else to type it. I posted a TikTok about it. It had 80 comments, a lot of back and forth, a lot more than I expected personally about this exact topic because I thought, a lot of fans would lean more towards Cena. But Jeff Hardy, I'm not sure if he was at a Comic Con or a fan asked him a question, but he believes that if he would have had a healthier lifestyle in his 20s and 30s, he could have been bigger than John Cena. Now, Tears, I know you're not the biggest fan of either one of these guys. Could have Jeff Hardy in his prime, if he would have stayed sober, been as big as John Cena?
Honestly, I can definitely see it because around 2008, 2009 was I would personally say Jeff Hardy's peak in WWE, and if he managed to remain healthy and healthy, in case you catch what I'm trying to say, then yeah, because fans loved him unanimously, and he was, I think at the time he was the number one merch seller. You can quote me on that and consider me wrong, probably, but he had the charisma, he had the moves, he had the right crowd at the time too. So yeah, I genuinely believe that he could have, if he actually remained caring. I'm not saying he doesn't care, but like cared about himself, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, because Jeff Hardy was huge, especially in 2000. I had comments saying he was bigger than Obama in 2008, which I thought was kind of funny, people saying that. So before I get to QJ, I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on it. So if you want to follow me on TikTok, by the way, before it gets shut down, Brandon Talk Sports. It ain't looking like TikTok going to be around much longer, but I still post here and there on it. So a lot of the comments were back and forth. And for me, I think it was a possibility because kids and women especially love Jeff Hardy with the face paint, the armbands, and the tail he had on his attire and everything, if you want to call it a tail. Just everything about him stood out. And he was a big time baby face. Fans would go crazy for him. A lot of fans loved that he jumped off stuff. And just everything about him screamed like a mega star. And there were a few comments saying, like, and I agree, like, he wasn't as good on the mic as Cena, and you got to be good on the mic to be a mega star in WWE. I do agree. I don't think Jeff Hardy was, like, ever really seen on the mic. But I do think he could have been at least the second biggest baby face if he wasn't already in WWE, if he would have got his shit together and stayed sober and healthier. And do I think Jeff would have had to dim down his style a little bit if he would have became the guy in WWE? Absolutely, because he was doing a lot of crazy stuff, and WWE wants to keep the top guy healthy. But I don't think he would have been as big as John Cena, but I do think it's very close when you look at it because Jeff Hardy was such a over star at that point. So QJ, I'll go to you. Obviously, big Cena fan. Do you think Jeff Hardy wouldn't have been as big as John Cena if he would have just stayed healthy?
Uh, I think Jeff Hardy would have had his good moments for a while. Like I said, people loved a lot about him. Clothing, like I said, people was buying the merch and everything. Um, it was good watching him. You tune on, you already see him jumping off something. He's like the highlight reel. Um, I feel, yeah, but like you said, WWE need also got to have good mic skills too. I don't really see Jeff Hardy talk like that on the mic like that. Uh, I don't think he would have been a bigger star than John Cena. He probably would have had a. I feel like would have had a good moment. And he probably would have fell off after a while. I don't think he would have been able to sustain it for that long.
Yeah, it's definitely a question of if he would have been able to. I will say though, it's all about whether Vince liked Cena or Jeff more too. Because I mean, we've seen a lot of instances where somebody became over as hell, and Vince was just like, "You didn't get over because of me," or whatever the case. Obviously, he liked both these guys, but he might have liked Cena more, and maybe he didn't want Jeff Hardy to be as big as John Cena. if we're talking hypotheticals here, but you never know. Wrestling's all about who the booker likes. I mean, let's look at Austin Theory, for example. I know he's not on these guys' level, but with Vince McMahon in charge, he was getting pushed to the moon. With Triple H in charge, he's in a meaningless tag team. So it's all about whether the booker or promoter likes you. And I think that would have been a part of it too. But man, it was something to think about. Definitely comment your thoughts about that one. I'm curious all the comments of what y'all think about Jeff Hardy against John Cena, of who could have been bigger if Jeff would have just stayed right and everything. Man, Jeff Hardy in 2008, he was definitely on a different level. I mean, he was in main events. He was at a match with Triple H. He was a big deal. And it's always a what could have been. Obviously, he had a Hall of Fame career, but you always think about like what happens if he would have stayed sober and everything. I mean, sky was the limit for Jeff Hardy, especially at that point. But Malakai Black, who hasn't really been on AEW TV that much. We say that for a lot of people in that company, unfortunately. His contract's up in either February or March. There's rumors swirling he might go back to WWE. Obviously, his wife, Selena Vega's there. He was there before, a favorite of Triple H. And rumors are swirling about him. It looks like the House of Black is done. We saw Murphy have that match with Will Ospreay, which Murphy needs to stop, or Buddy Matthews needs to stop doing the curb stomp. I don't like him doing that move, especially if it's not a finisher. But back to Malakai Black. Tears, I'll start with you. Obviously, you're a big fan of him as a worker, a wrestler, as a character, everything. Would you want him back in WWE?
By the way, side note before I get to that, I'm okay with Matthews doing the curb stomp because he was in that group with Rollins, and I think it was a nice little fun mention of that personally. So just let that be there, just for whatever reason.
Not to
Uh,
cut you off. The reason I have an issue with it is because he don't ever be anybody with it. Adam Cole kicked out of it,
Too
and
many
Austin.
kickouts. It's getting
Yeah, that
ridiculous.
move's supposed to be like one of the best moves. But my bad. Continue.
well, I was also gonna say that Rollins is the only person to ever pin somebody off the curb stop. There's other people out in wrestling who do it, and they don't win from it either. Even when Tegan Knox was in the Indies, she curb stopped people on chairs, like not folded up chairs on the ground, just like actually placed chairs, and she still couldn't get the win. But that's another thing. Uh, I can see him going to WWE, Malachi Black, because Triple H, Malachi knows how Triple H booked him. Considering NXT, he was one of the biggest names there. One of, not the, because before people think I'm that biased. But I feel like he's going to do some matches outside if he leaves AEW before going back to WWE. Or he could, specifically go back straight to WWE due to his wife Vega. We don't know, but I truly think, while yes, it would be good for him to come back to WWE with today's environment, I think he'll probably do some more matches outside of it before going back.
Could definitely see that for sure. So for me, I feel like he has a ceiling. He's never going to be a world champion either company at this point. In AEW, when he first got there, he's beating Cody, and I really thought he's going to be a big deal. But we say that for a lot of people who debut in AEW, unfortunately. They're a big deal when they show up, and then they disappear for like 9 months, and it's just like, yeah, that person's on the roster. So for him returning to WWE, I wouldn't mind it. Just depends what his role is going to be. Maybe he's just a guy who's like in the mid card, has good matches. I don't know if they're really going to do much with him, but you never know. He had a really unique gimmick. I guess it depends how that gimmick goes. I mean, we see with the YS6, and I know it's completely different gimmicks, but like those dark gimmicks only get you so far in wrestling, especially. But maybe Triple H figure something out. Again, wouldn't hate it, but it ain't exactly something that gets me overly excited either. It's kind of just like, yeah, he's coming back. It's cool. And we'll see it go. We'll see how it goes. So, QJ, what do you think about Alistair / Malakai Black potentially return to WWE? You think it should happen?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he do go back, we'll probably give him a little moment, and then we'll be forgetting about him. And like you said, AEW was beating a lot of top guys, and we forgot he was even there. So it's like I feel the same will happen when you go to WWE, but well, return back. Uh, They'll have a little moment, and after that, oh man, wait, he's still there? I didn't know he was still there. So we'll just have to see at that point.
Yeah, because WWE has such a loaded roster right now that there's only so many spots. And obviously, you can always use a guy like Malakai Black. He's a great worker, definitely good with his character work. He can talk. He's got that mysterious uniqueness about him. So I do think there's a role for him. It's just anybody expecting him to come to WWE and be the main event scene or be really like relevant. I don't think that's going to be really a thing. But you never know. I mean, Triple H likes him a lot. Maybe he's in another stable. Maybe he's solo. I kind of prefer him as a solo, depending on what his role will be. We'll just have to see. AEW, they're losing a lot of talent. I think a lot of talent is getting frustrated there because they're just not being used. Penta as an example of that. And what we've already talked about Penta, what his role may be. He's debuting against Chad Gable on Raw next week. I do think that'd be a great match. I'm still curious what Penta's finish is going to be, considering he can't do the pile driver or the package pile driver, but guess we'll see on Raw. So WrestleMania, around the corner. A lot of matches being rumored, talked about, thrown out there. Triple H said he's already got the main events in place, so a lot of this is just speculation. But a report came out yesterday that WWE is considering doing Logan Paul against Gunther at WrestleMania. And reading the comments and really my overall thought, really without reading comments, was like, I get it from getting the eyes on the product standpoint. Logan Paul is a big name outside of wrestling. You get more eyes on Gunther. Not a lot of casual fans know a lot about Gunther. They know of him. They don't really watch a lot of his stuff, from what I hear. So from a viewership standpoint, I get it, but I just feel like there's more deserving candidates than Logan Paul. But it is someone who is being discussed off the record or on the record. John Cena's dad said he'd like to see John Cena face Gunther, so that's just something thrown out there. QJ, I'll start with you. What do you think about the idea of Logan Paul challenging Gunther at WrestleMania for the world title?
I think that is I'm not saying it won't be a good match. They both will wrestle. It's just I think someone else need to be there WrestleMania. Like I get why they potentially doing it because probably bring way more ratings. Logan Paul he got a big fan base on YouTube and everything, so all of them most likely will be tuning in that have never watched wrestling before. They see Logan Paul there, so um, I feel like it'll be good for a business standpoint. But I think it's other people that need to get that. That need to be there. That could that match could kind of happen on like another pay per view and then Logan Paul. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Nothing's confirmed. We'll have to see what happens at the Rumble. Logan Paul, listen, from a wrestling standpoint, he's one of the best. And him and Gunther would cook from a match standpoint. Do I see him beating Gunther? I mean, there are a lot of fans who think Logan Paul's a future world champion in WWE. Now, do I see that anytime soon? No, especially since he's working a part-time schedule. But we'll see. Tears, what do you think about the idea of doing Logan Paul and Gunther at Mania?
I wouldn't mind if it wasn't at Mania. That's majority of my thing. Like I'll say this: Logan Paul is one of their most entertaining wrestlers they have in WWE. I would say top. I really want to be generous enough to say top 10 most entertaining wrestlers they have in WWE right now. Do I really want to be that generous? Kind of leaning towards that. But either way, that's once again another debate. I feel like it would be a fun match, but I don't think it needs to at all be a Mania match. I feel WrestleMania, it alone is the draw. It's more of a draw than Logan Paul. I feel like you don't need Logan Paul in the world title scene to draw people to Mania. So I would say, like, if you're gonna do that match, do it at something like Fastlane or No Way Out or Extreme Rules or whatever pay-per-view you want to do it in between. But you do not need a certain individual to draw WrestleMania.
No, that's a fact. You're already going to have Cena on the show. You're going to have Rock on the show probably. And like you said, it's WrestleMania, so it's going to be a selling point. It's the biggest show of the year. I mean, Yeah, I don't really see the point of having this at WrestleMania. I think there's better opponents for Gunther. Maybe Punk. Maybe have Gunther drop the title and do Rollins and Punkmania. Who knows? But yeah, I don't want to see that at WrestleMania at all. I think there's other opportunities. And Logan Paul, he really wanted to face Cena. I don't think WWE wants that to happen either. So he's been really wanting to get on the WrestleMania card, which he's going to be on the card. But yeah, like everybody said, a world title match just doesn't make much sense to me overall. So switching gears here, AEW. And something I've been noticing, and again, AEW is a booking mess right now. There's a lot of problems with the booking and how Tony Khan has booked shit and everything else. I've just noticed there's a lot of stars like MJF, Will Ospreay, and not that they can't take losses. That's not what I'm saying, but they're taking unnecessary losses. And you can even look at WWE, like Cena hasn't won a match in like 6, 7 years, and Solo and Austin Theory both beat him. And it didn't really do anything for either one of them because Cena's been losing so much that when you beat a guy who's been losing so often, it doesn't really become meaningful at that point. And I just noticed Will Ospreay, I think he lost like 2 or 3 matches in the Continental Classic. And if you're going to have him lose, in my opinion, in a Continental Classic tournament, the people who beat him need to go far in the tournament. Darby Allin pinned him, and Darby Allin didn't even make it to the semifinals, the finals, or nothing. So it was like, okay, you're having a guy like Ospreay take these losses, but it's not really benefiting the people beating him enough to really make it worth losing. And maybe this is where Ospreay, I've heard he's very giving and wants to put other people over and show top guys can take losses, and that's fine. But you don't want to take too many losses where it's like, yeah, he beat Will Ospreay. And with MJF, I remember Daniel Garcia beat him. Yes, he's TNT champion, but I just feel like that win didn't really do as much for Daniel Garcia as it should have. So that's just something I've noticed. But Tears, what do you think about AEW having stars take unnecessary loss? Do you see as a problem, or are you okay with the idea?
I just want to point out, you said Darby, they weren't doing anything with Darby after he won. Darby, last time I remember, he was going for the world title until Moxley came back and went like, "No, you're not. I am." Took Darby's spot, and now all of a sudden Moxley is world champion.
Oh no, I'm talking about the tournament because he pinned him in the
Oh yeah,
tournament. Didn't go far
I
in the
get that.
tournament. Yeah.
I was just like as an example to where like Darby was going somewhere, and then all of a sudden one loss just set him just wherever. So yeah, I can totally get that. It feels like in AEW, like wins are definitely more important. This is like a two-edged sword situation right here, in my opinion, because this is both agreeing but also disagreeing a little bit with you because losses, I would say, do matter. It's just the fact like, or I'll put it this way: with how many people get losses and nothing leads to the people who won, when you do get the wins, it feels like the wins are more important. But the moment you lose, everything's just gone to the point to where like it's just a deflation. Like as soon as somebody loses, just like, well, okay, goodbye, any hopes and dreams of you. Whereas if you get a win, it's like, okay, that's good. You're not the one I wanted to win, though.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, what I mean more is like, okay, you're having somebody beat Osprey, who's the biggest, arguably the biggest star in the company outside of MJF and Kenny Omega, and it just feels like it's not even really that big of a win. It's just like, yeah, they beat Will Osprey, then he loses again, then he loses again, then he loses again, and they're talking about like on AEW, like, oh, if Murphy beats Osprey, this is the biggest win of his career. I'm not going to argue that, but it's like when you have a guy take so many losses, it makes beating him mean less to me. Like it's like Roman Reigns, right? If Roman Reigns just started losing 2, 3 times a month, beating him doesn't mean as much. He's a top guy. When you beat a top guy, it should mean a lot. Like it should elevate somebody. And to me, AEW's having, Daniel Garcia beat MJF. It's not really elevating Daniel. Yes, he's TNT champion, but it's like they forget that match even happened. And they're having guys beat Osprey. And it's just like, yeah, they beat Osprey. Okay, well, it's pretty much me saying like Tony Khan booking week to week is really hurting his product because if you're gonna have somebody beat a Will Ospreay, there should be plans to push them more if you're having them beat a guy like that. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Right, no, and I understand that. What I was getting at is to where, like, say Osprey coming into AEW, and him winning the world title, his stock is at 10. Each loss put him down to 9, 8, 7, 6. And I get what you're saying. I was also saying, like, kind of, this is where the agreeing with you part comes from, because, like, yeah, they can say Osprey's a big name, but right now his stock is like at, say, 3. We could have Matthews, whose stock is probably a 4, and they could say it's a big deal, but it's just like, dude, Matthews is doing a lot better than Osprey right now. So that's what I was saying. Like, if let's get that analogy. Say somebody whose stock is 2, if they beat a 4, then yeah, that's going to be bigger for them, bigger win. But if your stock is lower than the person who wins, then whatever. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. Like, their stocks are just not as high as they're letting them believe.
Yeah. I definitely agree. That's kind of like a little bit what my point is. Like AEW just doesn't have a plan for whoever wins. We've talked about this before. Tony Khan's booking week to week. There's no long-term booking in place, which is a huge problem for stuff like this. He's pretty much just getting on a WWE 2K or AEW game, booking random matches each week, and saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. And the next week, it's just like a whole different ball game. And, to me, that's a problem. But I know me and Tears went back and forth for a little bit about it. What do you think about stars in AEW taking unnecessary losses? Do you think it's unnecessary? Do you see it being a good thing in certain situations? What is your overall opinion on it?
Just gotta mean something. I mean, top guy take a loss. It should elevate that person to a new level. And if he's just taking a loss, people forget, like, oh yeah, he pinned him, a month ago, 2 ago. Wasn't that exciting. You know, take example as Kevin Owens came. So WWE pretty much Kevin Owens came, beat Cena, elevated him even higher. So AEW, I mean, it should do the same. We don't really see that like that. And yeah, Tony Khan gotta get better with the booking. Because don't get me wrong, I like seeing dream matches, but you just putting that together, then what? What's next? What's the plan?
Yeah, there's like none of the plan. And KO's a good point because, like, if anybody hasn't got a chance to watch this, KO did a video on WWE's YouTube channel of him, like, reacting to his biggest moments. And he even said, like, Cena wasn't taking many losses at that time. This was like, what, 2015, Cena, 2016? So, like, he said that really helped him get noticed by the WWE fans because they didn't know a lot about Kevin Owens or Ring of Honor Kevin Steen or NXT Kevin because they don't watch that stuff. So he debuted, did a promo against Cena, got his name out there, and he beat Cena, and it got him instantly on the map of like, okay, this guy beat John Cena. He's going to be a damn big deal on the main roster, and he was for a long time and still is. So I think that's kind of an example of what AEW needs to do more because, yeah, these guys can come in and beat Ospreay, but if you're not doing nothing with them, all these wins against Ospreay are going to mean nothing. It's just like against MJF. If you're going to have MJF lose, it better be to somebody you're planning on putting the rocket to and going up because it's like these are your big names. I'm not saying they should never take losses, but when they do, it needs to be a big deal. And, I mean, WWE has a problem with it as well. So I'm not just saying it's an AEW thing, but man, when you have stars start taking constant losses and then you act like it's a big deal, it's not. But let us know your thoughts about that in the comments. I know everybody's gonna have different opinions about that. That's just how I felt about the situation. I just know it's Osprey been losing a lot on AEW, so we'll see what goes on with him. He did lose to Okada in the finals. I don't really have a problem with that because it was for a title, but like a lot of other losses are just kind of meaningless. So Kurt Angle recently talked about the UnderTaker. And Kurt does a lot of podcasts. He was on Dutch Mantel's podcast the other day. I watched that. Very good. Recommend that. He talked about Undertaker losing to Brock. and he pretty much said, quote, "You don't need to make Brock Lesnar." And yeah, I mean, I'll start with you, Tears. You're a fan of both Taker and Brock. What do you think about Kurt saying this? Do you agree or disagree?
I feel like this is a topic that been going on since it happened. We all can all say I'm willing to bet we're all going to agree. Like Brock did not need to win. It's a debate whether Undertaker should have ever lost or not with a new guy or somebody. And I also get the other side of the argument to where, like, if he was going to lose, at least it was somebody who can feel like they would actually win against the Undertaker at Mania. I get that. I, on one hand, I do want the Undertaker to have retired with the streak, keep it undefeated, make it an iconic moment and all that. But I also understand the argument to where like the streak had to end eventually. Somebody needed to win it. Now, would I have liked it to be somebody that I would have loved to imagine getting the big dub and becoming one of the greatest things ever? Sure. I don't know who that could have been. I really could not think of a new star who could have beaten the streak. And plus, let's not forget, Undertaker's been wanting people for a while to beat the streak. He wanted Randy Orton to beat the streak. He wanted Edge to beat the streak. Nobody said yes. So I think it's just one of those things where either they just decided to end it, somebody took liberties, or Brock was just the only person to say sure. I'm gonna say I wanted the streak to continue, but I'm one of those who's not mad that it ended finally after so many years.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And to answer your final part, it was Vince's decision, and it was like a last minute change. Vince was just pretty much the plan was for Undertaker to win. And like an hour before the show, Vince was like, you know what? We're going to have Brock in the streak. And Undertaker tried fighting him on it. And Vince wouldn't budge. He wanted Brock to do it. So that's why they went in that situation. So for me, I've always said I didn't think Brock needed to win. He was already a made star. It's just kind of like with Reigns beating Undertaker after, like Vince just loved his stars just adding to the resume of like, okay, you haven't done this, so we'll have you do this, even though you don't need to do this. Let's just add it to your resume. Like, Brock, you've done everything in this business. Let's have you win Money in the Bank. Let's have you an Undertaker streak. Let's have you just accomplish everything. And by the way, side note, I watched Ali's interview with Chris Van Vliet. He said that was also a last minute change. Brock won Money in the Bank. Apparently, a lot of people backstage were pissed off about that, including Ali, which I understand because he was apparently supposed to win that Money in the Bank. But back to the War or to WrestleMania. No, I don't think Brock should be Undertaker. He didn't need to. And that match was just not a fun experience at all for Undertaker in general. He don't even remember that match. He had a concussion during the match. I think it's when Brock did the belly to belly on the outside of the rings when Undertaker got that concussion. If anybody wasn't really familiar when he got it, it wasn't from the F5. It was from the belly to belly. And Undertaker just was out after that. Like he don't remember any of it. But yeah, I don't think Brock. Yeah, I don't think Brock needed to win. So QJ, what do you think about what Kurt had to say?
Yeah, I feel Kurt right. I don't think Brock needed to win. Someone else could have did it. They could have elevated themselves off that. Because I mean, that was the problem with Vince making these top guys just chase all these records, and did they really need to really have a big record like that? I mean, gotta have other superstars get their moments, and that could have been another superstar have a good moment like that. That could have always been remembered. But then you have Reigns beat him next after that, so it's like, yeah. I mean, it was meant to be broken eventually, but could have been a better decision.
Yeah, because this is like an example, and I know this ain't gonna be it wasn't gonna be possible. But like imagine like a Braun Breaker's first year on the main roster, he ends on a Taker streak, and he's young, and he's like somebody WWE's hasn't done a lot with yet. You haven't beat Undertaker, that elevates him to a whole different level because that's one of his first accomplishments. He's a new guy on the main roster. Just something I'm throwing out there. But Undertaker, like, listen, he wants to do another match. at least one more match. He didn't really like ending against Styles in a cinematic match. So I'll ask y'all this: do you want to see? Ted, I'll start with you. Do you want to see Undertaker have a final match? I think we talked about this before, but would that be something you want to see personally?
Problem is, I actually think a cinematic match was the perfect thing to end it on because it can hide what they couldn't do in an actual wrestling match, and it plays to Undertaker's strengths of him being, as the memes say, the spooky dude, Grandpa Spooky dude. Uh, but I understand why he would want another match because he's from the time period to where like it is about the match, not like the theatrics. Even though he is theatrics. Uh, I like this is weird because I if you would have asked me this last year or the year before that, I wouldn't hesitate to say no. He should not. He's unfortunately done. Should not. But I can see there being a light at the end of the tunnel with it being like maybe having so much time away from the ring, he can actually have a healthy-ish body for his age to do stuff. Like maybe he's not going to be able to take too much, but he could probably, with how long he's been gone, do things. Maybe I don't know. I'm just speculating. I'm trying to. I I want to play safer and say no, but if they do it, I'll be optimistic. That's the best way I'll put it. Like if they do it, I'll be optimistic.
I like that answer. That's pretty much how I'm gonna go with too. Like for me, it all depends who he faces. He needs to face somebody with a safe move set, not anybody who's gonna be like really like hard hitting, physical. I don't know who that would be necessarily. I mean, maybe someone like a Kevin Owens. I mean, KO did work with Stone Cold and did very well taking care of Stone Cold. So I think KO, somebody like that, would be a perfect opponent for
Well,
Undertaker.
that match was a DQ too to cover up some stuff.
Yeah,
Win the
yeah.
DQ.
And Stone Cold, by the way, apparently said about that match that he didn't really get a lot of time to train. He actually wanted to have like an actual in-ring wrestling match. He just wasn't in full shape. So that's something to keep in mind with Taker too. Taker's around Stone Cold's age, so he would need probably a year to get ready. Knowing WWE, they'll do it on a Saudi Arabia show, which, by the way, them doing the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia in 2026 has gotten a lot of hate from fans, and I completely understand why. Maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode. For me,
Probably when it comes up.
yeah, yeah. Wouldn't hate it though. Just depends who he faces. But QJ, what do you think about Undertaker potentially doing one final match? You like the idea? Are you optimistic like me and Tier? What do you think?
Personally, don't think he should do it, but if he really want to do it, gotta have a. I don't know what opponent who he would do it with. Someone
I'll
question.
say this. I got an idea. We could either do this two ways. You can either turn somewhere down the line LA Knight heel because LA Knight kind of does have that like safe-ish move set, or we can capitalize from NXT where we had the heel Braun Breaker, the new badass gimmick. Braun Breaker can calm it down a little bit in the ring for Taker, but we can actually capitalize because there is a story there.
Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't. Yeah, Braun Breaker would make sense. LNI is a very safe worker. There's a lot of possibilities. Those two do make the most sense storyline wise. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate even if they did him and Styles in like a normal match. Styles is very safe as well. You don't have to do the Styles clash to me, do the phenomenal forearm or something like that. So I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. We'll see though.
But should he win or lose?
Win.
Yeah, probably win. But there's always this fan argument of like when a guy has his last match, he should win or lose. A lot of fans think people should always lose their final match, and there's the side of the fan base that think they should always win. What side do y'all fall on that when it comes to final matches?
I say have him win. Might as well.
I think it depends on what were they more famous for and what they're doing with heel or face. If
Mm-hmm.
they're a heel, like say Jericho. Jericho wants to end his wrestling career and like just conniving and evil and be like dragged out with fans saying like, "God, I'm glad he's gone. Good riddance" and all that. That's how Jericho wants to leave wrestling. So, but if you're a face, and yeah, you get the win, be the hero at the end of the story type vibe. And if you're so much more of a heel like Chris Jericho wants, then you maybe take the loss and be dragged out of the building type stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Babyface and heel, depending on what you are, that definitely adds to it. We'll see. Hoping the best for Taker. His podcast is very interesting. I know there's fans out there who don't like his political views and everything. We'll not even talk about Hogan and why he got like Hogan. All I'm going to say is, so real quick, not to get political here because I'm not a very political person, but I keep hearing people say, oh, they only booed Hogan because of who he supports. Okay, Undertaker supports the same stuff, and he didn't get booed on Raw. It's more for what Hogan has said, being racist, a liar. I think that has more to do with him being booed than what he goes with politically. I know it's LA, but that's just my 2 cents there. So, final topic of this episode, we're going to be talking about MJF. And I've been hearing a lot of criticism online about MJF. His aura, as they call it, has weared off. His booking's been bad. He hasn't been back that long. He was filming Happy Gilmore 2, which we'll see how that goes. I think Becky Lynch is in it as well with Adam Sandler and all of them. If you guys seen the original Happy Gilmore, he's been back. He did the match with Adam Cole. That rivalry's been nothing but a disaster for AEW. I don't even get why they even went back to it. Pretty much MJF was supposed to be the heel. He's getting cheered by the audience. And then Kyle O'Reilly and Roddy came out and they're getting booed and they're supposed to be the baby faces in this whole thing. That was a disaster. Him doing the stuff with Jeff Jarrett definitely has some potential, depending on how you think about the Jeff Jarrett retirement tour. But MJF just seems like he's lost a little bit of momentum a little bit. And I don't know what they need to do to get that back. But Tears, I'll start with you. What have you thought about MJF's booking in AEW and has his aura wear it off?
I can definitely see the argument saying yes, it's worn off, but not for the reason people are saying why. The reason I think the aura for me has worn off for MJF is because last year he only wrestled like what 2 matches, and I get like injury and filming the movie and all that, but at the same time, it's just like people aren't going to acknowledge that. They're just going to acknowledge you're not on the camera, and you're not prevalent, and that's always going to be an issue with anybody, no matter what. So I do agree that the aura right now is gone. It's not saying that it can't come back, not saying they can't do something, but it's going to take some work because I am for people to know I am actually a Jeff Jarrett fan. I cannot wait to see how this tour goes, but I don't think MJF is either neat. Well, maybe I think MJF is needed for the Jeff Jarrett tour, but MJF does not need to be a part of this whatsoever. He probably needs to do something that actually keeps his momentum up. Because right now, I do not see him anywhere close to world title contender. Because he hasn't done anything in so long. That's my thing. That's where the thing is for me. It's like the aura is not gone. It's just not here. Like it's not with him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like he has lost a lot of momentum, and really the last time I really cared about was him and Ospreay. I know he left after the Ospreay feud, or maybe he left after the Danny Garcia feud. I think he left both times actually. I don't even remember, but man, MJF was a few months ago. I mean, he was red hot. I really enjoyed him and Ospreay's feud from a match standpoint, from a mic going back and forth on the mic standpoint. Like it was really cooking. That was really the last time I really gave a shit about MJF, and he's one of my favorites, if not my favorite, in the whole company. So I don't know if it's at a point where like everybody knows what to expect from MJF, and he's not really in an important feud. And like Tier said, he's not really needed in this Jeff Jarrett thing. I don't know if it's just them trying to get Jeff Jarrett, I guess, a little bit momentum himself by saying, okay, we're gonna put MJF with you. He's in their minds probably red hot, even though he's not. Maybe that'll help boost Jeff Jarrett's retirement tour a little bit. I don't know. Man,
that actually
oh,
goes
go ahead.
about the winner loss situation to where like they think the momentum of this name is more important than the wins and losses. I think those two things actually correlate with each other really well.
Agreed, yeah. And that's probably what's happening with MJF. Like, he's just ice cold right now. And do I think him re-signing with AEW could have been a mistake? Maybe. I don't know how he would have been booked in WWE. I do think there's a case of sometimes you've done everything there is to do in a company and maybe you change it up. Maybe that's a whole different topic. QJ, what do you though think about MJF? Do you think some of his momentum or aura is weared off a little bit? What do you think?
Yeah. Last time I heard of him was when he fought Ospreay in that 60-minute match. After that, I haven't seen him since. I mean, well, we saw him in Adam Cole match, but that was iffy. It was all right. Yeah, momentum kind of going down. Kind of sad though. I think MJF was really on this top, putting on great classics. Mic skills always good. Just not really seeing that like that.
I think this goes back to AEW really like just not having a game plan for a lot of these people. Like I heard Tony Khan actually say this, that there's like 200 people or something in a creative meeting. I hope he's not serious, because if you have that many people in a room trying to work creatively, that is a effing disaster. But like at this point, like I'm not gonna lie, I see a lot of similarities between Vince and Tony Khan. Like, yes, Tony Khan lets them go out there and wrestle more than Vince, but he's about as much of a mess creatively as Vince McMahon was in his final years in WWE. And that's sad to say, because I want AEW to be successful. I want them to have as much success as possible. It's another place for people to work. But he's just a guy with a bunch of money who don't know what the hell he's doing. And it's, he's got so many good talent on his hands. I mean, I could name tons of them. But it's like,
he got to get rid of them.
Yeah, there's just people not even being used. I mean, I saw Lance Archer pop up in this casino gauntlet thing or whatever. I forgot. Me and QJ were like, oh yeah, Lance Archer's still with this company. He will. Same thing with Brian Cage. I know he's in a match next week, but like some of these people I forget even exist. And it's like he won't release nobody. He won't get rid of nobody. He won't. He just has all the wrong people he's listening to, in my opinion. And I don't know if that's going to change. It sounds like he's not a guy who takes a lot of accountability. Every time I hear him doing interviews, he's like, yeah, AEW is doing great. And it's like, yeah, y'all are getting paid by Warner Brothers and everything for Max and your TV deal. But like ratings wise, y'all ain't doing good. And there's many reasons why. So MJF, he's a draw. One of the biggest draws, if not the biggest draw they have. So for him to be ice cold right now is not a good thing. Obviously, Omega's coming back. I think that's who Brian Cage is facing next week, Omega, if I'm not mistaken. By the way, his match in New Japan was very good. Definitely recommend watching that. But yeah, AEW's got to get their shit together. I know there's fans who said WWE's kind of wearing off a little bit with their momentum. Story-wise, I mean, debatable, but man, AEW is a complete mess. But any final thoughts from y'all before we wrap up this episode?
Nope.
Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed our thoughts and opinions on this week's topics. Make sure to like and subscribe for more LTQ Wrestling Podcast content. Peace.
Peace.